Your mind is constantly reacting to a world you cannot control. One thought from Marcus Aurelius can change everything. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. This ancient wisdom offers a way out of our modern emotional chaos. It is not about shutting down your feelings, but about building a disciplined mindset from the ground up. We are going to explore the emotional architecture of a Stoic mind. By the end of this, you will possess the blueprint for unwavering inner stability. We will uncover how your perception shapes your reality and why your desires might be the very source of your anxiety. What is the one external event that most often disrupts your peace? What if the key to emotional stability was knowing the difference between what is and isn't yours to command? The ancient Stoics built their entire philosophy on this single, profound distinction. It is the foundation upon which a resilient mind is constructed. The philosopher Epictetus, a former slave who understood powerlessness intimately, opens his handbook with a stark truth. He says some things are within our power while others are not. Within our power are our opinions, our impulses, our desires, and our aversions. Everything not of our own doing, our body, our property, our reputation, our public office, are not within our power. Your opinion about the traffic jam is yours to command. The traffic jam itself is not. Your reaction to critical feedback is yours to shape. The feedback itself is not. We suffer because we desperately try to control the uncontrollable, and we neglect the one domain where our authority is absolute, our inner world. Think of your emotional energy as a finite resource, like water in a canteen on a long journey. If you pour it out onto the hot, dry sand of external events, you are left with nothing for the path ahead. But if you reserve it only for your own thoughts and actions, you will never thirst. Can you recall a recent situation where you felt your peace shattered? Perhaps a plan that fell through or a comment that stung. In that moment, where was your focus directed? Were you trying to command the event itself, or were you tending to your judgment of it? This is the first and most critical step in building your emotional architecture, learning where your true property begins and ends. The first brick in your emotional architecture is the space between an event and your judgment of it. This gap, however small, is where your freedom resides. An event occurs and your mind immediately presents you with an impression, a raw, unprocessed piece of data. The Stoics called this a fantasia. Your power lies not in stopping these impressions, but in what happens next in the act they called assent. This is your conscious choice to either endorse that initial impression as truth or to pause and question it. A harsh email arrives, and the immediate impression is one of attack. Emotional discipline is the mental muscle that stops you from instantly agreeing with that story. It asks you to withhold your verdict, to investigate the evidence before you render a judgment. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his private meditations, "Take away your judgment, and then you have taken away the thought, I am hurt. Take away the thought, I am hurt, and the hurt itself is taken away." The event remains, the email still exists in your inbox, but its power to wound you dissolves the moment you withdraw the label you gave it. Consider a friend who fails to reply to your message for a day. The automatic judgment might be, they are ignoring me, they are angry, I have done something wrong. This judgment, instantly accepted, creates a storm of anxiety and resentment. But if you exercise your power of assent, you pause, you examine the impression, you consider other, more likely stories. Perhaps they are exceptionally busy. Maybe their phone battery died. It is possible they saw the message in a rush and forgot to reply. By choosing a different, more generous judgment, the emotional turmoil simply vanishes. The event was the same, a silent phone, but your emotional reality was rebuilt by the story you chose to tell yourself about it. Can you remember a moment when you made a snap judgment that you later discovered was completely wrong? What was the initial feeling that judgment created, and how did the truth, when it emerged, change everything? That space you wish you had taken, that is the very space we are learning to cultivate now, on purpose. Your mind is a citadel with walls built not from stone but from character. What are these walls made of? They are constructed from your deepest values, the virtues you choose to live by regardless of the weather outside. This is the Stoic secret to resilience. It is not about developing a thick skin or ignoring pain, but about forging an inner core so solid that chaos cannot penetrate it. The Roman philosopher Seneca, in his letters, described the wise man as a figure who is safe and on firm ground, impregnable, satisfying himself with his own goods. He is not relying on fragile external supports for his happiness. His strength comes from within. This inner citadel is your private fortress of virtue. When external events batter against its walls, your peace remains intact because it is not dependent on those events. Your job, your reputation, your wealth, these are things outside the walls in the open field. They can be taken, they can change, they can be destroyed, but your integrity, your courage, your wisdom, your sense of justice, these are the foundations of the citadel itself. They cannot be seized by anyone but you. Consider Seneca's own life. He was a wealthy and powerful advisor to the Emperor Nero, living a life of immense external comfort. Yet when Nero ordered his exile, stripping him of his property and status, Seneca's response revealed the strength of his inner fortress. He did not crumble. He turned his exile into a period of profound writing and philosophical reflection. The external world had been taken from him, but the man within, defined by his virtues, remained unshaken and fully in command. Now picture a modern parallel. Imagine facing a sudden, unexpected professional setback, a project you poured your heart into being cancelled, or a position being made redundant. The initial shock is real, but if your sense of self-worth is built entirely upon that job title, the collapse feels total. If, however, your citadel is built on the virtue of doing your best work, on your integrity in all dealings, and on the courage to adapt, then the setback, while disappointing, does not destroy you. You remain the same person with the same core strength, ready to apply your virtues to a new set of circumstances. The storm rages outside, but inside the walls there is calm. So, what are the non-negotiable materials that form your own inner citadel? What values are so fundamental to who you are that even if everything else was stripped away, they would still define you? Is it your honesty, your compassion, your commitment to growth? Identifying these is the first step in building a resilience that is truly unshakable. What you want determines what bothers you. Your deepest desires are the blueprints for your emotional state, and when those blueprints are flawed, the entire structure becomes unstable. Every moment of anxiety, every flash of frustration, is a signal that your desire has become entangled with something outside your command. The Stoics identified this as the root of nearly all our suffering, the constant craving for outcomes we cannot guarantee. Epictetus, with his characteristic clarity, taught that freedom is not the right to do what you want, but the right to want the right things. He defined freedom as the right desire for the right things, consistent aversion to the wrong things, and the careful judgment of everything in between. This is the discipline of desire, the architect's most crucial tool for building a sound mind. It is the deliberate work of aligning what you want with what is truly good, which for the Stoics is always a matter of virtue and reason, never external circumstance. Consider the modern desire for social validation. the quiet hope that a post will receive a certain number of likes or a project will earn public praise. When you desire this specific outcome, you hand over a piece of your peace to an algorithm and the whims of an unseen audience. The moment the notification count falls short of your expectation, disappointment and self-doubt inevitably follow. The event itself is neutral, a number on a screen, but your desire for a different number creates the turmoil. Now, apply the discipline of desire. You cannot control who likes your post or what praise you receive. That lies in the field outside your citadel, but you can absolutely control your desire. You can shift your primary want from receiving validation to acting with integrity. You can desire to create something honest, to express a genuine thought, or to contribute something you believe has value. When your deepest desire is fulfilled the moment you act with integrity, the public reaction loses its power to devastate you. The outcome becomes a secondary detail, not the source of your satisfaction. Your peace is no longer held hostage by a result you cannot command. Can you identify one desire in your own life that is entirely dependent on an external outcome? Perhaps it is the desire for a specific promotion, for a person to act a certain way, or for a particular plan to unfold without a hitch. Now, what would happen if you released that specific desire and replaced it with a more virtuous alternative? Instead of desiring the promotion, could you desire to work with such excellence and diligence that you become the obvious choice? Instead of desiring someone to change, could you desire to act with compassion and firm boundaries yourself? This subtle but profound shift in what you want is how you reclaim your freedom from the unpredictable world outside your walls. Amor Fati is the Latin phrase for a love of one's fate. This is not passive resignation, it is an active embrace. It is the final, most profound stone laid in the emotional architecture of a disciplined mind. After you have built your inner citadel and aligned your desires with virtue, this is the practice that welds your entire being to reality itself, exactly as it unfolds. The Stoic emperor Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, "A blazing fire makes flame and brightness out of everything that is thrown into it." This is the essence of Amor Fati. It is the decision to become that fire, transforming every obstacle, every setback, and every piece of misfortune into the very fuel for your own growth and illumination. The suffering in our lives so often comes not from the event itself, but from our internal argument with what has already happened. We scream inside, "This should not be." We waste our energy fighting a reality that is already here. Amor Fati asks you to drop the argument. It invites you to see every single event, especially the difficult ones, as not merely something to be endured, but as a necessary and useful part of your unique path. A failed project is not a mark of personal failure. Through the lens of Amor Fati, it is a crucial lesson in what does not work, a redirection pointing you toward a more authentic endeavor. It is the grit that strengthens your resolve and clarifies your purpose. A personal loss, while deeply painful, can become the very experience that carves out a deeper capacity for empathy and connection within you. It becomes a part of your story that allows you to understand and support others in a way you never could have before. The obstacle itself begins to look different. It is no longer a hated enemy blocking your road, but the raw material for building a stronger bridge. Think of a time in your own past when a plan fell apart completely. At the moment, it likely felt like a pure defeat, but can you look back now and identify one single way that event ultimately served you? Did it close a door that needed to be closed, forcing you onto a better path? Did it teach you a lesson about your own resilience that you carry with you to this day? That recognition, that search for the hidden benefit, is the beginning of loving your fate. Take a moment to write down just one way a past difficulty ultimately shaped you for the better. Where is your mind right now? Is it truly here, or is it borrowing trouble from tomorrow, or perhaps replaying a grievance from yesterday? This very moment is the only place where your power is real and your actions matter. Anxiety is a debt you pay on a catastrophe that may never come, while regret is a tax on a past you can no longer change. The Stoic path to emotional stability demands that you build your home squarely in the present. It is here, and only here, that you can exercise your discipline of judgment and desire. The Roman philosopher Seneca saw this with painful clarity. He wrote, "We are not given a short life, but we make it so, nor do we lack a long life, but we are wasteful of it." He was not just talking about mortality. He was pointing to our mental habit of exile. We are absent from our own lives, frittering away our attention on what is already gone or what is not yet here, and we wonder why we feel so emotionally bankrupt. Worry is a form of passivity, a surrender of your active power to a phantom future. The antidote is to attend to the current task, however small, with your full and undivided excellence. This is not mystical advice, it is intensely practical. Consider the simple act of washing dishes. Your body is at the sink, your hands in the warm water, but your mind is 1,000 miles away. It is rehearsing a difficult conversation you must have tomorrow, or it is churning over a mistake you made last week. The entire experience is one of tension and unease. The chore feels like a burden because you are not really doing it. You are elsewhere, and that elsewhere is a source of suffering. Now apply the Stoic focus. Bring your entire awareness to the present task. Feel the texture of the plate, the temperature of the water, the scent of the soap. Notice the rhythm of your breathing as you scrub. There is no difficult conversation in this moment. There is no past mistake. There is only the plate, the water, and you. The anxiety has no place to root itself because you have fully inhabited the only reality that exists. The peace you find is not in the dishes, but in the act of being completely present with them. Your judgment is no longer scattered across time. It is focused, and in that focus you find a profound stability. This evening, try a small experiment. Spend just 5 minutes with a simple activity like drinking a cup of tea, but do it with your full, undivided attention. Do not look at your phone, do not plan your evening. Simply notice the warmth of the cup in your hands, the aroma rising to meet you, the complex taste on your tongue. Note the quiet difference in your emotional state when your mind is not pulling you in 10 different directions. This is the practice of presence, the daily masonry that fortifies your emotional architecture against the storms of time. To build a mind that isn't fragile, you must occasionally test its limits on purpose. This is the load-bearing wall in your emotional architecture, the practice of voluntary discomfort. It is not about seeking pain for its own sake, not a form of self-punishment, but a training exercise for the soul. You are building a reference library of resilience within your own nervous system, proving to yourself through direct experience that you can handle far more than you assume. The Stoic teacher Musonius Rufus was a powerful advocate for this. He argued that just as an athlete must train to compete, a person who wishes to live well must train to endure life's hardships. He saw comfort as a potential weakness, writing that luxury and a soft life rob a person of their fortitude. By deliberately choosing small, manageable hardships, we inoculate ourselves against the fear of larger ones. The goal is to make yourself at home in a wider range of human experience, so that when fortune delivers an unexpected blow, your foundation does not crack. Think of it like this: if you have only ever walked on perfectly smooth, flat pavement, the first time you encounter a rocky, uneven trail, you will likely stumble and fall. But if you have spent time walking on those very trails on purpose, your feet learn the terrain, your muscles grow stronger, your balance improves, When an unexpected rocky path appears in your life, you are not terrified. You have been here before, you know how to navigate it. This is what voluntary discomfort achieves. It is the practice of walking the rocky path so that you are never truly lost when one appears. The modern applications are simple and profoundly accessible. It can be as straightforward as taking a cold shower for the final 30 seconds. In that moment, you are not just enduring the cold. You are actively observing your own mind. You notice the initial protest, the desire to escape, and then you witness your own capacity to stay, to breathe, and to accept the sensation without being controlled by it. It can be skipping a meal and sitting with the feeling of hunger, not with resentment, but with a curious mind, learning that the feeling is temporary and that you remain fully intact. It could be choosing to walk a longer route to work, giving up a few minutes of convenience to remind your body and mind that effort is not an enemy. Each small act is a vote for your own resilience. This week, I challenge you to select one tiny, voluntary discomfort. It should be something safe but noticeably outside your routine comfort zone. When you practice it, pay close attention. Observe the initial resistance, and then observe the quiet confidence that emerges on the other side. What did you learn about your own strength when you chose to meet discomfort, rather than waiting for it to ambush you? The greatest remedy for anger is delay. Seneca offered this simple, profound advice for a reason. He understood that anger is a fever of the mind, a temporary madness that burns through the careful architecture of a disciplined mindset. In the heat of the moment, it feels justified, even righteous, but its aftermath is always a scorched landscape of regret. Stoicism does not ask you to never feel the initial spark of irritation. It challenges you to refuse the fuel that turns that spark into a consuming fire. Anger, for the Stoics, is not an involuntary reaction forced upon you. It is a choice born from a specific and often flawed judgment, the judgment that you have been intentionally wronged. Your peace of mind is shattered not by the other person's action, but by your own assent to the story that you are a victim of an injustice. This is where Seneca's delay becomes your most powerful tool. It creates the crucial space between the provocation and your response, the same space we discussed for your judgments. In that pause, you reclaim your sovereignty. You can investigate the initial impression before you endorse it as truth. Consider a common flashpoint: road rage. Another driver cuts you off abruptly. The immediate, raw impression is one of disrespect and danger. The automatic judgment screams, "That person is an idiot who has wronged me." Without a pause, this judgment triggers a cascade of biological and emotional reactions. Your heart pounds, your muscles tense, and you are ready for a fight. You might honk aggressively, shout, or even pursue the other car. But what has this anger built? Your entire emotional state is now in the hands of a stranger you will never see again. Your disciplined mind has been hijacked. Now, apply the Stoic pause. The car cuts you off. You feel the surge of adrenaline, but you consciously delay your reaction. You take a breath. In that space, you begin to reassess. You consider the other perspective. Perhaps that driver is not an arrogant fool, but a distracted parent rushing to a sick child, or someone who simply made a mistake, just as you have done countless times. You assess the real harm. Are you actually injured? Is your car damaged? In almost all cases, the true damage is not to your person or property, but to your pride, and pride is a flimsy foundation for your emotional stability. By choosing a different judgment, the anger loses its reason to exist. The event remains, a car changed lanes, but your internal peace is preserved because you refuse to declare yourself a victim. Seneca wrote that we are often more angered by our own assumptions than by the facts themselves. He advised us to be gentle with the mistakes of others, for we too are constantly in need of forgiveness. What is the one situation that reliably ignites that spark of anger within you? Is it a specific tone of voice from a colleague, the perceived ingratitude of a loved one? A particular type of online comment? Identify that trigger now. Then, devise a single, simple Stoic tactic for the next time it arises. Perhaps your tactic is to physically pause and count to 10 before speaking. Maybe it is to silently ask yourself, what is a more generous story I can tell about this person's actions? Or simply to question, is my anger serving any useful purpose here, or is it only causing harm? By preparing this single response, you are not just suppressing anger, you are actively dismantling it at its source, the faulty judgment, and reinforcing the unshakable walls of your inner citadel. Let us take a step back, a very, very big step. Picture the earth not as a map, but as a glowing blue and white marble hanging in the profound blackness of space. From this vantage point, the borders of nations vanish. The sprawling cities become faint, glowing networks. The mountains are mere wrinkles on the surface. Now find yourself, in all that immensity, where is the problem that feels so consuming today? This is the Stoic practice of the view from above, a powerful meditation for gaining emotional distance by mentally zooming out to a cosmic or historical scale. Marcus Aurelius constantly returned to this perspective in his private writings. He would remind himself to frequently contemplate the whole of time and the entirety of substance. He observed how all the material things of the world are swiftly swallowed up in the eternity of time, and how many of the people who made such a fuss are now long forgotten. He was not trying to make life seem meaningless, but to reveal the true proportion of our troubles. Most of what agitates us is not a world-ending catastrophe, but a petty drama that looks insignificant from just a slight distance. Your argument with a coworker, the frustration of a delayed flight, the sting of a critical comment, when viewed from the summit of a mountain or from the edge of the solar system, shrink to their true microscopic size. They are brief disturbances in a single, tiny life on a small planet in a remote corner of a galaxy. This is not about dismissing your feelings, but about placing them in a context so vast that their power to overwhelm you naturally diminishes. Try this as a brief mental exercise right now. Bring to mind a current worry, something that feels large and immediate. Now, in your mind's eye, project yourself 100 years into the future. Look back at this moment from that distant point. From that future, how much will this specific problem truly matter? Will it have shaped the course of your entire life, or will it be a faded memory, a minor footnote in the long story of your existence? The event itself may not change, but your relationship to it is utterly transformed. The weight you felt is lifted not by solving the problem, but by understanding its true scale. The next time you feel overwhelmed, when a problem seems to fill your entire field of vision, practice this view from above. Even for 30 seconds, close your eyes and pull the camera back. See your street from the sky, your city from orbit, your century from the next. Watch as the sharp edges of your anxiety soften and blur into the grand, quiet tapestry of time and space. What feels like a storm cloud directly overhead is revealed for what it is, a small, passing weather system in the vast atmosphere of your life. Your attention is your most valuable currency, and every thought is a withdrawal. Are you investing it in assets that grow your peace, or are you wasting it on emotional fees that drain your account? This is the core of the Stoic electrical system, the conscious management of your mental and emotional energy. Epictetus gave us the master key when he taught that we are disturbed not by things, but by the views we take of them. This is not just a philosophical statement, it is a practical insight into energy allocation. Complaining, holding onto resentment, and feeding anxiety are all massive power drains. They are like leaving every light in your house on all night, burning through your resources without any return. Stoic discipline is the act of walking through the rooms of your mind and consciously switching off the lights you do not need, preserving that vital current for what truly matters. Your energy is finite. When you spend an hour fuming about a rude comment from a colleague, you are not just losing 60 minutes, you are depleting the very focus you could have used to complete a meaningful project or connect deeply with a loved one. The event itself, the comment, was a momentary spark. The raging fire that followed was fueled entirely by your own judgments, your own choice to keep feeding the story of how you were wrong. Now contrast two different days. On the first, you receive a piece of disappointing news. You spend the entire day ruminating, replaying the event in your mind, complaining to anyone who will listen, and imagining worst-case scenarios. By evening, you are emotionally exhausted, having accomplished nothing and feeling utterly powerless. On the second day, the same disappointing news arrives. You feel the initial sting, you acknowledge the disappointment, but then you consciously redirect your energy. You ask the single most powerful question in the Stoic toolkit: what is within my power to do about this right now? You identify one small, constructive step. It might be drafting a single email, cleaning one corner of your workspace, or simply taking a walk to clear your head. You pour your full attention into that one actionable task. By evening, you are tired from effort, not from emotional turmoil, and you have a small but tangible piece of progress to show for your day. The external event was identical, but your internal energy management created two entirely different realities. Take a moment to audit your own mental energy from the past 24 hours. Cast your mind back and try to make a rough calculation. What percentage of your focus and emotional fuel was spent on things entirely outside your command, like other people's opinions, past mistakes you cannot undo, or future outcomes you cannot guarantee? And what percentage was invested wisely in your own sphere of power, in your judgments, your efforts, and your virtuous actions? This honest accounting is the first step toward becoming the master electrician of your own mind. How do you know if your emotional foundations are solid? You inspect them daily. A building does not wait for a full collapse before checking for cracks, and neither should your mind. The Stoics perfected this practice with a simple, powerful ritual, the evening review. This is not about rehashing your day with regret, but about conducting a calm, forensic inspection of your own judgments and actions, identifying where your discipline held strong and where it cracked under pressure. Seneca, in his letters to Lucilius, describes his own nightly routine. He would ask his soul each evening, which of your ills did you heal today? Which vice did you resist? In what part are you better? He was not seeking punishment but progress, treating his mind like a garden that needed daily weeding and care. Your own review can be just as structured and purposeful. Set aside just 5 minutes at the end of your day. Find a quiet space and ask yourself 3 deliberate questions. First, where did I judge poorly today? This is about tracing your emotional reactions back to their source. Did a traffic jam make you angry because you judged it as a personal insult to your time? Did a colleague's feedback trigger defensiveness because you judged it as an attack rather than information? Pinpoint the exact moment your assent was given to a faulty impression. Second, when did I act against my core virtue? Did fear cause you to hesitate when courage was required? Did you choose the easy lie over the difficult truth, compromising your integrity? Be honest but without self-flagellation. You are an architect assessing the blueprint, not a judge issuing a sentence. And third, the most important question: how can I improve tomorrow? This turns reflection into a plan. If you judge the traffic poorly, your plan might be to leave 5 minutes earlier or to use the time for an audiobook, reframing the delay as a gift of time. If you acted against courage, your plan might be to rehearse one difficult sentence you will say when a similar situation arises. This is proactive maintenance for your soul. Commit to this evening review for just 3 consecutive days. The first day, it may feel unfamiliar, like using a new tool. The second day, you will start to see patterns, noticing the same triggers and the same cracks. By the third day, you will begin to carry the questions with you into your waking life, your mind already starting to build stronger, more conscious judgments in the moment. This daily inspection is how you ensure the walls of your inner citadel do not slowly erode without your notice. The Stoics weren't pessimists, they were realists who believed in preparing the mind for reality. They developed a specific exercise for this, a drill for the soul called Premeditatio Malorum, the premeditation of evils. This is not the same as anxious worry. Worry is a chaotic, fearful churning that fixates on a terrible outcome you desperately hope to avoid. Premeditatio is its calm, rational opposite. It is a deliberate, almost clinical rehearsal of potential challenges, not to summon fear, but to disarm it. By accepting a difficult possibility in the quiet of your own mind, you systematically rob the future event of its power to shock you and hijack your emotions. Seneca was a master of this practice. He advised his friend Lucilius to regularly rehearse exile, poverty, and even death in his mind. He wrote, "He who has anticipated the coming of troubles takes away their power when they arrive." He wasn't encouraging a gloomy outlook. He was building a kind of psychological immunity. By mentally walking through the worst-case scenario and realizing that he could still endure it, that his character could remain intact, he transformed the unknown monster of misfortune into a known, manageable circumstance. The terror was in the not knowing, the uncertainty. Premeditatio replaces that uncertainty with a plan. Consider the modern fear of public speaking. The common advice is to visualize success, to picture the audience cheering. But the Stoic approach is more robust. It asks you to also visualize a challenge. Close your eyes and calmly picture yourself on stage. Now, imagine you forget your next line. The silence stretches. In a typical anxious mind, this thought spirals into panic and humiliation. But in your premeditatio drill, you stay with it. You see yourself pausing, taking a slow breath, glancing at your notes, and then continuing with a calm demeanor. You have a prepared response for the stumble. You accept that forgetting a line is a possibility, not a catastrophe. When you walk onto that actual stage, the fear of forgetting has lost its sting because you have already lived through it in your mind and discovered your own capacity to handle it with composure. The event no longer controls you. You have a pre-tested protocol for your peace. This week, pick one upcoming event that holds a thread of anxiety for you. It could be a difficult conversation, a job interview, or a travel day. Find a quiet moment and give yourself just 2 minutes. Calmly visualize a specific challenging scenario unfolding within that event. Do not run from it. Then, with that same deliberate calm, visualize your own Stoic response. See yourself pausing, breathing, and acting from your core virtues rather than from panic. What single, quiet action would preserve your integrity in that imagined moment? This small act of mental engineering builds a hidden runway for your courage, ensuring that when reality arrives, you are already prepared for takeoff. In Stoicism, gratitude isn't just a feeling, it's a defense mechanism against discontent. It actively patrols the walls of your inner citadel, reinforcing them against the siege of endless wanting. This practice grounds you firmly in what you possess here and now, which is the only territory you truly command. While the world outside is fickle and unpredictable, your capacity for reason, your ability to show courage, and your very breath are constant, available goods. To neglect them is to leave your most reliable assets unguarded. Marcus Aurelius dedicated entire passages of his private journal to this meticulous accounting of blessings. He would list his gratitude for his grandfather's good character, for the brother who showed him integrity, and even for the luck of not wasting more time on trivial pursuits. His lists were not about material wealth, but about the virtues he witnessed and the faculties he could still use. This was his way of taking stock of his true, unassailable property. You can adopt this same defensive strategy today. Before sleep, instead of cataloging your day's irritations, mentally note 3 Stoic goods you actively employed. Did you use your reason to solve a small problem? Did you exercise the virtue of patience in a trying moment? Did you appreciate the simple fact of having a body that moved you through the day? This shifts gratitude from a passive response to good fortune into an active recognition of your inherent tools. Now, take this a step further. Write down one thing you are genuinely grateful for about your own character or an ability you possess. It could be your resilience in the face of a past challenge, your capacity to listen, or your willingness to learn from a mistake. This internal focus reminds you that the core of your fortress is built with materials no external event can ever take from you. Your most powerful emotional anchor is your own character. When it is solid, the storms matter less. Every time you choose to act with integrity, you are not just making an ethical decision, you are pouring a foundation of unshakable self-trust. The emotional stability you seek is not a separate goal to be chased. It emerges naturally from this consistency between your values and your actions. A conflicted conscience, on the other hand, is a constant source of inner friction. Every moral compromise, no matter how small, creates a hairline fracture in your emotional architecture, a quiet hum of anxiety that drains your peace. The Stoics defined the only true good as acting virtuously, a process entirely within your command. Your character is the one thing you can build that no outside force can ever dismantle. Consider the daily choice between telling a difficult truth and offering a convenient lie. The lie might seem to offer an easier path in the moment, avoiding an uncomfortable conversation or a moment of friction. But what is the long-term emotional cost? That small falsehood creates a tiny pocket of dissonance within you. You know you were not fully honest. You have to remember the story you told. A subtle tension takes root because a part of you now lives in misalignment. Conversely, telling the difficult truth, while it may cause temporary discomfort, leaves you with a clean conscience. There is no internal conflict to manage, no story to track. The event passes, and you are left with the quiet confidence of knowing you acted in accordance with your principles. The external outcome might be the same, but your internal world is completely different. Think of a time you had to admit a mistake you could have easily hidden. Recall the initial dread and then the surprising sense of relief that followed your confession. The weight was not in the mistake itself, but in the burden of concealing it. Where in your life right now do you feel a slight unease, a quiet tension that suggests your actions are not fully aligned with your deepest values? It might be a relationship where you are not being entirely authentic, a work project where you cut a corner, or a promise to yourself you consistently break. Identify that one area. Now, what is the single smallest, most manageable step you could take today to begin correcting that misalignment? It does not need to be a grand gesture. It could be sending one honest email, having one brief but truthful conversation, or simply recommitting to one neglected personal standard. This single act of realignment is not just about fixing a problem. It is a direct investment in your own emotional stability, reinforcing the very bedrock of your inner citadel. Resentment is a poison you prepare for someone else, but then you are the one who drinks it. This ancient truth reveals a critical system in your emotional architecture, the ventilation that clears out the toxic buildup of attachment. Your mind, like any strong structure, needs a way to release what is no longer serving it. Clinging to outcomes, to the opinions of others, or to past grievances is like sealing all the windows and doors. The air grows heavy, stale, and difficult to breathe in. Emotional discipline is not just about what you build, but what you consciously choose to let pass through you. Epictetus offered the master key to this system when he taught, "It is not things that disturb us, but our interpretation of their significance." We are not chained by the event itself, but by the meaning we glue to it and refuse to release. A colleague makes an offhand comment. The event is a few seconds of sound. The attachment is the story you create and clutch for days, the narrative of disrespect or hidden meaning. That story is the weight you carry, not the sound. Letting go, then, is the act of peeling off that label you applied. It is an act of profound wisdom, a strategic decision to stop funding a conflict that only exists on the ledger of your own mind. It is the strength to open the window and allow the fresh air of a new perspective to circulate. Consider a minor slight, something that happens to all of us. A friend forgets a promise they made to you. The initial sting is real. The undisciplined mind latches onto this, building a case. They do not value me. They are irresponsible. I will remember this. Each thought is another brick walling you into a cramped, bitter space. The Stoic art of letting go begins with a simple question. Is my clinging to this grievance changing their behavior? Almost always, the answer is no. The only person being affected by your silent grudge is you. So you make a choice, not for them, but for your own mental clarity. You consciously decide to release the story. You might think they made a mistake, as all humans do. This changes nothing about my own worth or my path. The event is not erased from history, but its emotional charge is neutralized. The space it occupied in your mind is now free, available for better, more constructive thoughts. What old grievance are you holding onto that is silently taxing your peace? It does not have to be a monumental betrayal. It could be a years-old criticism from a parent, a sense of injustice from a past job, or a small wound from a partner that you have secretly nurtured. Find it now. Give yourself a simple ritual of release. Take a physical piece of paper and write it down. Describe the feeling, the story, the weight. Then safely burn it and watch as the physical representation of that attachment turns to ash and disappears. Or, if that is not possible, perform the act clearly in your mind. See yourself writing it down, folding the paper, and dropping it into a flowing river, letting the current carry it away for good. This is not about condoning a wrong. It is about declaring that you will no longer be the permanent curator of a museum of past pains. You are opening the vents, clearing the air, and reclaiming the space for your own growth. The phone rings with bad news. What is the first thing your trained mind does? It does not spiral. It follows a pre-built protocol, an emergency exit you have already installed for this exact moment. A disciplined mind does not wait for the crisis to figure out its response. It has a drill ready. This is your Stoic emergency procedure, a 3-step mental routine to prevent panic from taking command. Step 1 is the most immediate and physical. Pause and breathe. This is not a cliché. It is a deliberate act of creating space between the shockwave of the event and your reaction. In that single breath, you halt the automatic cascade of catastrophic thinking. You are not stopping the feeling. You are simply refusing to be swept away by its current. Step 2 is to apply the dichotomy of control. In the fresh space created by your breath, you ask the clarifying question, What part of this situation is truly mine to handle? The sudden job loss, the personal rejection, the bad news itself, that is the external event. It has already happened and lies in the field outside your walls. Your command is over your response, your judgment, and your next move. This step isolates your sphere of power from the vast ocean of things you cannot change. Step 3 is to frame the entire event with Amor Fati, a love of fate. You consciously accept that this setback is now a part of your path. You do not have to like it, but you can immediately begin to see it as raw material for your growth. As Marcus Aurelius advised himself in a crisis, ask, what is this thing in its essence? Strip away the emotional label of disaster and see the neutral facts. A project cancellation is, in its essence, a change of direction. A rejection is, in its essence, information. By removing the layer of catastrophic storytelling, you see the event for what it is, not for what your fear says it is. Let us walk through this protocol with a sudden job loss. The call ends, your heart is pounding. Step 1. You consciously put the phone down, close your eyes, and take 3 slow, full breaths. You feel your feet on the floor. This simple act asserts that you are still here, you are still in your body, and you are not the panic. Step 2. You apply the dichotomy. The company's decision, the state of the economy, these are not within your power. What is yours to command? Your response, your ability to update your resume, to reach out to your network, to manage your household budget with wisdom, and to treat yourself with compassion. Your focus narrows from the terrifying abstract to a list of actionable items. Step 3. You frame it. This is now part of my path. How can this serve me? Perhaps it is the forced push I needed to finally pursue a different career. Maybe it is a lesson in humility or a test of my resilience. It is the grit that will strengthen my resolve. The event is transformed from a termination into a redirection. Now, take a moment to rehearse this for yourself. Bring to mind a hypothetical sudden setback, something that would typically trigger a wave of anxiety. It could be a serious health diagnosis for a loved one or a significant financial hit. In your mind, walk through your 3-step exit. First, the pause and the breath, creating an island of calm in the storm. Second, the sorting process. What can I actually control here? Separate the unchangeable event from your sovereign response. Third, the acceptance and reframe. How can this become part of my story of strength? By mentally practicing this drill now, you are not being pessimistic. You are installing the emergency lighting so that when the power goes out in a real crisis, you are not left fumbling in the dark. You know the way out. What unexamined belief is currently running your emotional life? Beneath the surface of your daily reactions, a handful of silent assumptions dictate your reality. These are the stories you have accepted as absolute truth, the invisible architecture that shapes every emotional response. The Stoics, following the path of Socrates, understood that freedom begins when you bring these shadowy beliefs into the light of conscious examination. Epictetus put it with stunning clarity when he reminded us that we are disturbed not by things, but by our opinions about them. That opinion is the unexamined belief, the lens through which you view the world, and until you clean that lens, you will always see a distorted picture. This practice of illumination is not about positive thinking, it is about truthful thinking. It is the disciplined work of identifying the specific judgment that is causing your pain and holding it up to the cold, clear light of reason. Consider the deeply held belief that making a mistake means you are a failure. This is a silent contract you have signed with yourself, a rule that ties your entire sense of worth to a single, flawed action. When this belief is running in the background, a minor error at work does not feel like a simple misstep. It feels like a confirmation of a deep, hidden truth about your inadequacy. The emotion that follows, whether it is shame, anxiety, or defensiveness, is a direct product of that initial, unchallenged judgment. Now bring the light to it. Interrogate the belief as a Stoic would. First, ask, is this belief true? Does one action truly define my entire character? History is filled with stories of great successes built upon a mountain of prior failures. A single missed shot does not make a terrible basketball player, and a single error does not make a failed human being. Second, ask, is this belief useful? Does believing that I am a failure because of a mistake help me to improve, or does it paralyze me with fear, making me less likely to take the intelligent risks required for growth? You will find that this belief is neither true nor useful. It is a phantom, a faulty piece of software that you can choose to uninstall. The reframed Stoic judgment is far more powerful. Making a mistake means I am human, and it provides me with essential data for my continued growth. This new judgment does not ignore the error, it embraces it as information. The emotional shift is immediate. Shame is replaced by curiosity, defensiveness by a calm resolve to learn and adapt. The event, the mistake, has not changed. But the story you tell about it has been completely rewritten, and with it, your entire emotional experience. Your turn. Pick one recurring negative emotion that visited you this week. It might have been a flash of jealousy, a lingering resentment, or a wave of insecurity. Trace that feeling backward, like following a wire to its source. What was the specific, unquestioned judgment that sparked it? Was it the belief that you are entitled to a certain outcome, the assumption that someone else's success diminishes your own? Or the idea that you are not enough without a particular possession or title? Name that silent belief, write it down, see it for the fragile, constructed thing it is. In that moment of recognition, you have not just felt an emotion, you have begun to understand its origin, and in doing so, you have taken the first step toward dismantling its power over you. The opinions of others are their property, not yours. Why are you paying rent on them? Every time you feel a sting from criticism or a giddy high from praise, you have handed over the keys to your emotional state to someone else. This constant need for external validation is a structural weakness in your emotional architecture, a crack through which chaos can freely enter. Building true discipline means soundproofing your mind against this noise, recognizing that both applause and boos are externals, entirely separate from your own virtue. Your worth is not a fluctuating stock price determined by the market of public opinion. It is a fixed asset grounded in your character and your actions. Marcus Aurelius, a man who received more applause and criticism than most, wrote a stark reminder to himself in his private journal. He said, "The applause of the crowd means nothing. It is just the clapping of hands, a burst of sound that fades into silence as quickly as it arose." He was not dismissing the people, but the transient, fickle nature of their approval. It is not something to be collected or feared, because it tells you nothing true about the quality of your own soul. It is simply data, an external event to be observed and then allowed to pass. Consider the emotional world of a social media influencer whose daily peace is dictated by the metrics of likes, shares, and comments. One day, a post goes viral and they are euphoric, feeling seen and valued. The next, a negative comment thread appears and their entire sense of self-worth plummets. Their emotional state is a roller coaster controlled by an audience they have never met, a perfect illustration of the suffering that comes from seeking validation from outside sources. Now contrast that with the steady calm of a craftsman who works in solitude. He is not immune to feedback, but his primary satisfaction comes from the act of creation itself, from the knowledge that he has applied his skill with integrity and care. The final product may be praised or ignored, but his core satisfaction was secured the moment he put down his tools, knowing he did his best work. His validation is internal, and therefore it is unshakable. Can you recall the last time a piece of criticism, large or small, truly hurt you? Perhaps it was a performance review at work or an offhand remark from a family member. Revisit that moment now, but with your new Stoic lens. Instead of focusing on the critic or the sting, ask yourself one focused question. Was the action they criticized truly virtuous or not? Were you acting with integrity, courage, and wisdom in that moment? If the answer is yes, then the criticism is simply noise, a misunderstanding that belongs to the other person. If the answer is no, and you see a genuine fault, then the criticism is a gift, a useful piece of information that helps you grow. In either case, the emotional charge is neutralized. The opinion is no longer a verdict on your soul, but merely a piece of data to be coolly assessed and then filed away, leaving your inner citadel perfectly quiet and secure. Epictetus said the chief task in life is to distinguish between what is and isn't ours. The second task is to manage our reactions to both. Your mind has a thermostat, a mechanism for regulating its internal temperature by moderating what it moves toward and what it moves away from. This is the practical application of all that emotional architecture you have been building. An undisciplined desire, one that burns too hot, becomes an addiction, a relentless pull toward something that promises satisfaction but only delivers deeper frustration. An undisciplined aversion, a chilling fear, becomes a source of constant anxiety, making you recoil from challenges that are essential for your growth. The disciplined mind does not seek to feel nothing. It uses reason to set the temperature for both desire and aversion, ensuring neither one controls the climate of your soul. At the very opening of his Enchiridion, Epictetus lays out this precise mechanism. He writes, "And so, for all things that exist, the principle of dealing with them is to see what they are." For desire, the principle is that you will attain your object; for aversion, that you will not fall into what you would avoid. This is a master key. Your desire should be reserved only for things you can truly command, like acting with virtue, so that you are guaranteed to attain it. Your aversion should be directed only at things within your control to avoid, like acting viciously, so that you are guaranteed to escape it. When your desire is locked onto an external prize, you set yourself up for failure. When your aversion is fixed on an external event, you guarantee you will encounter it. Consider the simple, daily desire for sugary food. The undisciplined mind feels the impulse and obeys without question, moving toward the temporary pleasure. The disciplined mind feels the same impulse but applies reason. It pauses and assesses the desire against a higher goal, the value of long-term health and vitality. It does not necessarily deny the treat, but it chooses it consciously in a reasoned amount rather than being dragged toward it by a primal pull. The desire is managed, not erased. Now take the common aversion to a difficult conversation. The undisciplined mind recoils from the potential conflict, the awkwardness, the fear of saying the wrong thing. It avoids and procrastinates, allowing a small problem to fester into a major source of stress. The disciplined mind, guided by reason, reframes the entire event. It sees the conversation not as a threat to be avoided, but as a duty to be undertaken, an exercise in the virtues of courage and honesty. It moves toward the difficulty not because it wants to, but because reason dictates that this is the path to integrity and a clearer conscience. The aversion is faced, not fled. So, what is one desire you can practice managing with reason today? Perhaps it is the urge to check social media for validation, or the craving for that third cup of coffee. And what is one aversion you can choose to move toward? Maybe it is finally organizing that cluttered closet you have been avoiding, or sending that one email you have been dreading. Identify just one of each. Then, in that small, manageable moment, become the technician at your own internal thermostat, adjusting the dial with the steady hand of reason, and feel the quiet stability that follows. Does your emotional architecture have a maximum load rating? Every structure, no matter how well designed, has a limit to the weight it can bear before it begins to crack. Your mind is no different. Stoic wisdom is not about becoming an unfeeling machine that can endure infinite stress. It is about the profound self-awareness to know your current capacity, to avoid overloading it, and to strengthen it gradually through intelligent practice. This is the discipline of the load calculation, a quiet audit of your inner resources before you agree to carry more. Seneca, in his letters, frequently championed the necessity of retreat and rest. He advised pulling back into yourself, explaining that we must indulge the mind and give it the leisure that serves as its foundation. This is not a call to laziness, but a strategic recognition that a mind perpetually under strain becomes brittle and prone to poor judgment. To know when you are at your limit and to honor that boundary is an act of strength, not weakness. It is the wisdom to understand that you cannot pour from an empty vessel. Consider the person who says yes to every request at work, to every social obligation, to every family demand. They are like an engineer who keeps adding floors to a building without ever checking the foundation. Initially, they may manage, fueled by a desire to be helpful or a fear of disappointing others. But with each new commitment, the load increases. The stress accumulates silently until one day, a seemingly minor event, a missed deadline, a critical comment becomes the final straw that causes the entire structure to shudder and falter. Their emotional resilience collapses not because they are weak, but because they never respected the load-bearing limits of their own mind. Now, contrast this with the person who practices the Stoic load calculation. They are presented with a new, demanding project. Before answering, they turn their gaze inward. They assess their current emotional and mental state. Are they already managing several complex tasks? Is their energy reserve low? Have they had sufficient time for rest and reflection? If the calculation shows that adding this new weight would risk a collapse, they exercise the virtue of wisdom. They respectfully decline or negotiate a more manageable timeline. They protect their inner citadel by guarding its gates, knowing that a peaceful, functional mind is far more valuable than the temporary approval gained from overpromising. This week, conduct a quiet audit of your own commitments. Look at your calendar, your to-do list, the silent promises you have made to yourself and others. What is the true weight of your current load? Now, identify just one commitment, one single yes you have given, that is pushing you beyond your current capacity for peace. It does not have to be a large thing. It could be a weekly meeting that drains you, an extra task you volunteered for out of obligation, or even the pressure to maintain a social media presence. What is one thing you can respectfully decline, defer, or redefine to lighten your load and preserve the integrity of your inner fortress? You don't build a disciplined mind once. You lay a brick every single day. The emotional architecture we have been exploring is not a monument you erect and then simply admire. It is a living structure that you inhabit, and like any home, it demands continuous upkeep, repair, and the occasional renovation. This is the heart of the Stoic journey, a lifelong practice, not a final destination you arrive at and then remain. Setbacks, moments of forgetfulness, and old habits cracking through the new mortar are not signs of failure. They are the essential feedback for the builder, showing you exactly where your attention is needed next. The Roman philosopher Seneca captured this beautifully in a letter to his friend Lucilius. He wrote, "As long as you live, keep learning how to live. The moment you believe you have finished the work is the moment your foundations begin to quietly erode." Your inner citadel is not a fortress to be completed, but a garden to be tended daily. Think of this like physical fitness. If you miss one day at the gym, your muscles do not instantly vanish. The discipline is in returning the next day, not in maintaining a perfect streak. The real failure is not in the missed session, but in abandoning the practice entirely because of it. Your emotional fitness operates on the exact same principle. A day where you lose your temper or succumb to anxiety or judge poorly is merely a missed workout. It is data. It tells you which mental muscle needs more focused training tomorrow. The goal was never perfection, a state no human has ever achieved. The goal is progress, the quiet satisfaction of looking back over a year and seeing that your reactions are a little more measured, your peace a little more durable, your resilience a little more deeply rooted than before. This is the renovation process, the constant, gentle improvement of your own soul. So, what is the one small, daily brick you can lay today? It does not need to be grand. Your brick might be the conscious decision to pause for 3 full breaths before responding to a provoking email. It might be the commitment to write 1 sentence in your evening review, or to practice a single minute of voluntary discomfort by taking the stairs. Identify that one tiny, manageable action. What is the single, repeatable practice that will, brick by brick, fortify the specific part of your emotional architecture that most needs strengthening right now? A reed bends in the wind while an oak tree snaps. Which one does your mind resemble when circumstances shift without warning? The final, most elegant feature of your emotional architecture is its flexible floor plan, the capacity to adapt without losing your structural integrity. Stoic discipline is not a rigid set of rules you impose on a chaotic world, but a fluid wisdom that moves with reality itself. The goal is never to control the river, but to learn the art of navigating its currents without capsizing your boat. This is where the ancient concept of the reserve clause comes into play, a subtle but powerful mental notation the Stoics would add to every intention. You act with all your skill and effort, while simultaneously holding in reserve the acceptance of whatever outcome actually occurs. Your desire is fixed on your own virtuous action, never on the result, which remains in the domain of fortune. You do your best to prepare for the outdoor event while fully accepting that the weather may change your plans. The effort is yours to command, the sunshine is not. When the rain arrives, the undisciplined mind fights the reality of the storm. It complains about the unfairness, mourns the lost plan, and spends its energy on a battle it can never win against the sky. The flexible, stoic mind simply observes the rain, accepts it as the new reality, and immediately begins to adapt. The picnic in the park becomes a cozy gathering indoors. The disappointment is acknowledged, but it is not fueled into a crisis. The core principle to connect with friends and enjoy the moment remains perfectly intact. The method for achieving it simply changed form. The virtue was in the intention to host, not in the specific location. Can you recall a recent plan that was unexpectedly upended? Perhaps a work deadline that shifted abruptly or a personal outing that fell through. In that moment of change, did your mind resemble the rigid oak, straining and cracking under the pressure of the new reality? Or did it bend like the reed, finding a new way to stand tall? What single, small adaptation could you have made that would have preserved your peace while still honoring your original intention? Your mind is a sacred space. What have you let in today? Every notification, every headline, every fragment of gossip you consume is not just information. It is an emotional guest you invite past the gates of your inner citadel. The architecture you have built so carefully can be compromised from within if you are not the vigilant guardian of its entrance. The Stoics understood this long before the digital age. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his private meditations, "You need to avoid certain things in your train of thought, everything random, everything irrelevant, and certainly everything self-important or malicious. You must get used to winnowing your thoughts so that nothing creeps in which is not objective and is not to the point." He was describing the essential security system for a disciplined mind, a constant filtering of the impressions that seek your attention and your emotional energy. The modern world is a relentless siege of these impressions, a barrage of breaking news designed to shock, social media feeds engineered to provoke envy, and conversations filled with speculation and judgment. Each one carries a tiny emotional charge, a seed of anxiety, anger, or discontent. The undisciplined mind leaves its gates wide open, allowing this chaotic crowd to enter and trample its peace. The Stoic, however, stands guard. You consciously choose which impressions are worthy of your attention, your most precious resource. You ask a simple, powerful question before you let any piece of information settle in your mind. Is this necessary? Is this nourishing my character? Or is it merely agitating my passions? The daily news cycle, for instance, is filled with events entirely outside your command. Consuming it for hours is like voluntarily drinking a potion of anxiety and powerlessness. The Stoic approach is not ignorance but intentionality. You can choose to be informed by reading a single, reliable summary, absorbing the facts you need to be a responsible citizen, and then closing the page. You refuse to marinate in the emotional turmoil of stories you cannot change. Your attention is then freed for what you can command, your own judgments and actions in your immediate sphere of influence. This week, conduct a ruthless audit of your media diet. For one day, simply observe where your attention naturally drifts. Notice which sources leave you feeling informed and calm, and which leave you feeling restless, outraged, or inadequate. Then make one definitive change. Delete one social media app from your phone that you know serves only as a distraction or a source of envy. Or mute one constant news source that fuels your sense of helplessness. Replace that time with a single, nourishing input. Read one page of a philosophical text. Listen to a piece of music with your full attention. Have one conversation that moves beyond gossip and into genuine ideas. This is not an act of deprivation, but of empowerment. You are reclaiming the keys to your own mind, ensuring that the space within your walls is filled with light, not noise. Negative emotions are data, not commands. What are they trying to tell you? Every surge of anger, every pang of envy, every flicker of anxiety is a signal from your own mind, an alert that a specific judgment has just been made and accepted without question. The disciplined mind does not ignore these alerts or stuff them down. It treats them like a flashing light on a control panel, a call to investigate the underlying system. Your emotional plumbing requires this conscious maintenance to prevent toxic blockages from forming. When a strong negative feeling rises, the Stoic method is to isolate it and trace it back to its source. You begin by identifying the precise judgment that sparked it. The thought is almost always a variation of, "I have been wronged," or "I am lacking something essential." This is the blockage, the faulty interpretation that is causing the emotional backup. Seneca, in his profound work on anger, performs this very dissection. He does not tell you to never feel the initial heat. Instead, he guides you to break the process down. First comes the involuntary shock, the physical startle. Then comes the opinion, the judgment that an injustice has occurred and that it is appropriate to retaliate. This second step, he argues, is where the true error lies and where your power of reason must intervene. You challenge the judgment with calm, logical questions. Is this truly an injustice or merely an inconvenience? Is my interpretation the only possible one, or simply the most self-centered one? By holding the judgment up to the light of reason, you often find it dissolves on its own. Let us walk through the feeling of envy towards a colleague's success. The emotion arrives, a cold, tight knot in your stomach. The automatic, unchallenged judgment is that their success somehow diminishes you, that there is less victory available for you in the world. This judgment creates the feeling of lack and resentment. Now you apply the processing technique. You isolate the emotion of envy and identify its core judgment. Then you challenge it with reason. Does their achievement actually erase any of my skills or progress? Is the universe a pie with only so many slices, or is it a vast ocean of potential? Could their success even be a useful map showing me what is possible? You then replace the faulty judgment with a rational one. Their success is their own, and it has no bearing on my capacity for my own. I can choose to be inspired by their path rather than threatened by it. The emotion, now disconnected from its faulty source, begins to lose its power and flow away. The next time you feel a surge of any negative emotion, see it as a call to this inner maintenance. Pause and name the feeling. Then ask yourself, what is the specific story I am telling myself right now that is causing this feeling? Listen for the judgment. Then, with the calm curiosity of a scientist, ask, is that story absolutely and undeniably true? Stoics do not avoid joy. They find it in the only place it can never be taken away. The misconception of the emotionless Stoic is perhaps the most persistent and the most incorrect. This philosophy was never about draining the color from life, but about shifting the source of your deepest satisfactions from the fragile, external world to the unshakable, internal one. The goal is not a barren plain, but a garden you cultivate yourself, filled with resilient and positive states the ancients called eupatheiai. This is a profound, stable joy that flows directly from living in accordance with your nature as a rational, social being, from the consistent practice of virtue itself. It is the quiet hum of a machine functioning exactly as it was designed to, a contentment that does not flicker when the winds of fortune change direction. Marcus Aurelius pointed directly to this source when he wrote, "That man is happiest who needs no happiness from others, but rather finds his joy in benefiting them." Notice the shift. The joy is not in the praise or gratitude you might receive, but in the very act of contributing, in the expression of your own capacity for virtue. It is a satisfaction generated by your own action, a renewable resource that is entirely yours to command. You can feel this in the profound, quiet satisfaction of completing a difficult task with integrity, even if no one ever sees or applauds the result. The joy is in the overcoming, in the proof of your own discipline and capability. It is present in the sudden, unbidden awe you feel watching a sunset, a moment where your personal worries dissolve into the sheer majesty of the natural world. This feeling is not dependent on owning the horizon, but on your capacity to appreciate it, a capacity that can never be confiscated. Can you recall a recent moment of genuine, untethered contentment? A time when you felt a simple, steady warmth that was not reliant on a purchase, a social media notification, or any particular outcome going your way. Perhaps it was the feeling after a long, honest day's work, or the quiet comfort of a shared silence with someone you trust. Look closely at that memory. What was its true source? Was it not rooted in the experience of virtue, in an act of kindness, in a moment of presence, or in the appreciation of something beautiful and timeless? That specific quality of joy, the kind that leaves no anxious hangover, is the very fruit your Stoic garden is designed to grow. We have laid the foundation, raised the walls, and installed the systems. Now it is time to live in the house. The blueprint is complete, but the ultimate test is in the effortless flow of daily life, where these principles are no longer separate tools but the very fabric of your being. This is the final inspection, where all the components of your emotional architecture fuse into a single, resilient whole. Your disciplined perception, your managed desires, and your virtuous actions begin to operate in a silent, seamless harmony. The goal is not to think about Stoicism, but to be stoic, to move through the world with a quiet, unshakable composure that feels as natural as breathing. Epictetus described this integrated state as a soul that is in harmony with itself, a life that flows smoothly because its inner parts are no longer at war. It is the difference between a person who has to consciously remember to breathe during a panic attack and a person whose calm, steady breath is the unwavering background rhythm of their existence. Imagine a day filled with a cascade of minor frustrations. The alarm clock fails, spilling coffee stains a shirt, and a key meeting is cancelled at the last moment. The untrained mind would be a series of escalating reactions, a chain of frustration and resentment, but the integrated Stoic mind moves through the very same day on a different current. The broken alarm is met not with anger, but with a calm recalibration of the morning schedule. The coffee stain is a minor external, quickly addressed without a story of the universe being against you. A cancelled meeting is not a personal insult, but a sudden gift of unexpected time, immediately redirected toward a different, meaningful task. There is no internal checklist being consulted. There is no pause to ask, what would a Stoic do now? The response is automatic, flowing from a core that has been rebuilt to default to reason and virtue. The principles have become so deeply embedded that they are your first nature, not a conscious second thought. This is the living structure, not as a monument you visit, but as the home you inhabit every moment. So close your eyes for just a moment and visualize your own mind as this fully integrated, peaceful structure. See its solid foundations, its strong, flexible walls, the clear, calm space within. Now, as you walk through the rooms of this inner home, identify one single principle, one brick, that you most want to feel under your feet with every step you take. Is it the unwavering pause before judgment, the quiet acceptance of Amor, Fati, the daily habit of the evening review? Choose just one to embody so completely this week that it ceases to be a practice and starts to become who you are. Your mind is now a construction site, and every choice you make pours another layer of the foundation. The emotional architecture of a disciplined mindset is not a mystery, it is a craft. It is built brick by brick on the timeless blueprints of Stoic wisdom, the understanding that your power lies in your judgments, not in the chaos of events. It is found in the daily practice of loving your fate and in the quiet commitment to act with virtue, no matter the weather outside. This entire structure leads to a single, profound destination, the self-mastery that Epictetus described when he said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." That freedom is the ultimate peace, the unshakable knowledge that your inner citadel is your true home. You are the architect of your own soul. The tools are in your hands. The blueprint is now complete. Do not feel you must build it all at once. Start with just one practice. Lay a single brick today. Perhaps it is the pause before you react, or the quiet acceptance of a changed plan. Choose one and build upon it tomorrow. In the comments below, I would love to hear which principle you will build upon first. Share the first brick you are laying in your own emotional architecture. Your journey is unique, but you do not have to build it alone.